This is Car Con Carne. I'm James Van Osdell, not in the car today. In fact, I'm at Few Spirits, hidden, tucked away in a back alley in Evanston. And before we begin tonight, or today, or whenever you're watching it, Car Con Carne is sponsored by my friends at Suburban Roofing and Siding. So I'm recording this on February 26th. It's a Sunday. It's kind of a beautiful day in the Chicago area. It's an illusion. This is a deception. The weather will change. The elements will change. We know this. We live in the Midwest. That's kind of how it goes. If you're listening or watching in the area, you know, the storms are coming, then they can be brutal on your home. For a homeowner, when your windows, gutters, and doors take a beating, and you think you may have damages that could qualify you for a roof and or siding replacement through your insurance, talk to my friends at Suburban Roofing and Siding for a free 9-point inspection of your property exterior before you call the insurance company. Let them assess any damages you may have and walk you through the steps of a claim, hassle-free. They're an accredited member of the Better Business Bureau with an A+ rating, and all their contractors are licensed, bonded, and insured. They also use the highest quality materials available at no additional charge to you. Call 224-677-6149, 224-677-6149, or visit them at suburbanroofingandsiding.com. Car Con Carne also sponsored by 90 Days in the 90s. 90 Days in the 90s is a book written by my friend Andy Fry. It is a fiction book. It is a look back on Chicago music, specifically the Chicago music scene of the 90s. Darby owns a record store in the book, and she discovers the Gray Line. It's a part of the Chicago Transit Authority that you won't find on any map, but the Gray Line takes her back in time to the 1990s, and she can relive all that cool stuff. She can go back to Lounge Acts, Metro in the early days, and soak up all that 90s culture. It's a cool trip back. If you lived in Chicago during that time, it'll seem awfully familiar to you. If you didn't, you know the vibe. You know that was kind of like the Camelot of the time, and you can go back with my friend Andy Fry. Get a copy of the book on Amazon or 90daysinthe90s.com. And here we are at Few Spirits in Evanston. Poi Dog Pondering started off 2023 with their 10th full-length album, Keep On Loving Each Other. I've got a visual aid.
Oh, yeah.
The messages within are exactly what we all need to hear at this point in our shared history. And the songwriting and musicianship is world-class. I mean, it's Poi Dog Pondering. Joining me for this episode is none other than Frank Orrall of Poi Dog Pondering. Like I said, we're at the award-winning distillery Few in Evanston, Illinois. We're enjoying some bourbon, some rye. Yeah, we're really enjoying some rye. Yeah, we're out of the car for a reason today. I want to thank Paul Haletko of Few for the hospitality. Yeah. Poi Dog Pondering started the year with 2 sold-out shows at Thalia Hall for the record release. Next up, Frank, you'll be down the street at Space in May.
Yep.
Doing the solo thing. And then the full Poi Dog Pondering experience at River Edge in Aurora this summer. That's a summer show right there.
That's right, yeah.
So this new album, I want to talk about it. We're living in a very dark, cynical, acrimonious time. Enter Poi Dog Pondering with this new album, with all these inspiring, hopeful messages. It's almost like an outlier to everything else I see and experience in the world.
Yeah, I was just riding my bike through Hyde Park and where I live, and there was this big mural. Somebody just wrote, "Keep on loving each other," and I just thought, yeah, you're right.
And that became the album.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Lots of hooky songs on the album. Do It Your Own Way.
Yeah.
Starts the album. Shame on you. That song I can't shake it out of my head.
Thank you.
Again, that positivity, that the messages, which, I mean, you see and hear everything we all see and hear. Is this just who Frank Orrall is?
I mean, I've noticed that when I write a lot, there's a lot of kind of encouraging people to follow their heart, and it probably because it's something that I need to always be mindful of myself, so it keeps showing up in my writing. There's like but I just think like it's an important. For some reason, I think like it's an important thing that people need to hear, maybe that I need to hear too all the time. So yeah, it's okay. Follow your own heart. Live your life your own way. And
try to be kind. Be
yeah,
yourself.
Try to be kind. Yeah.
There's a song right after that. The song right after that, Free and Easy. This is almost like Style Council meets yacht rock.
Yeah. That's a good. That's a very apt and well-based observation. Yeah.
One of the many things I love about Poi Dog Pondering is you have world-class musicians. And everyone in the band gets to be a star, sometimes in the same song. And
Yeah.
this is an example of that.
Yeah.
I mean, right out of the gate, the horns grab you,
Yeah.
and then you're grabbed by those beautiful, otherworldly backup vocals.
That's
Like,
Kelly Hogan and Nora O'Connor Keane.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't get better than those
Yeah,
two.
they're amazing.
But I love it for a band as voluminous as Poi Dog Pondering. Everyone gets to stand out. No one gets lost in the songwriting or the performance.
You know, I think there were two really key things on this record that I think support what you're saying, and also like it was a directive that we had going into the record was one was that we wanted to make sure that we didn't clutter up the tracks, you know, so let everything have a feature. So like sometimes not all the instruments made it into the final mix, but the ones that made sense to go forward and to really shine, they got to do so uncluttered. The other was that, you know, I spent probably the last 10 years just listening to Brazilian music from like the late 60s and the 70s. People like Jorge Ben, Antonio Carlos Jobim, João Gilberto, and especially Antonio Carlos Jobim. He worked with Klaus Ogerman, who's an orchestral arranger, and Antonio always gave him lots of space to to do what he does. And so, when writing for this record, I made sure to leave lots of holes. So like, Paul Mertens and Susan Bells and Max Crawford, woodwinds, violins, and brass collectively could stretch their wings with their orchestral arrangements. And so made sure to leave like that big hole in the middle of between the two verses in Free and Easy. So, Max could go, and then Susan, and then and on to like Sweet Taste. We left those big, very purposefully, so that way we could let everyone run.
Well, you mentioned Sweet Taste of Love. That just strikes me, it's a song about the comfort and security of being with that right person.
Yes, yeah.
As simple as that is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Talking about performers or instruments kind of taking the lead, when I hear Bespeckled Angel, nice soulful song, I mean, the piano stands out on that one for me. That's
very intentionally. I mean, ironically, I mean, like when Ted and I started working, Ted's my guitarist, and we've co-produced a lot together. We've been together since Hawaii.
I was going to say, there's been some history shared.
And so we work very well in the studio together. Like I get on the drum kit. We'll sit together with the acoustic guitars, work out the structure of the songs, just make decisions about direction. I'll get on the drum kit. He'll get on the guitar. We'll smash it out together live, like kind of like get a feeling. Like it's like almost getting elbow room inside the song. Testing the walls, kicking the tires, and then. But while we were doing this, we watched a documentary on Primal Scream, who both of us really like, and it was on the record that they made called "Don't Give Out, but Don't Give In." I think it was called.
Yeah, it was mid-90s.
But right after they made Screamadelica, which was like around '90, they went down to Memphis and recorded with Tom Dowd at Trident, which we had just been there like 2 years before tracking stuff with the Memphis Horns. They went down there to record with the Memphis Horns to get this kind of, they have this love of the Stones. It shines through on songs like Damaged from Screamadelica or whatever.
Well, and that album you referred to, that's the one with Get Your Rocks Off, Get Your Rock. Yeah,
exactly.
Total Stones.
And so they made this full-on Stones record and then decided not to release it. And then they went on to make another version of it that was a little more trying to follow up Screamadelica. They finally went back and realized they passed on a genius album. So anyways, we were listening to that album and got very inspired. And so, you have the piano playing for the Stones, Nicky Hopkins, and then you have for Primal Scream, it's Martin Duffy, who's an incredible pianist. And so we had our keyboard player, Rick Garenbeck. We fed him both, because he's more into jazz and funk. So we fed him Exile on Main Street and also Martin Duffy from the Primal Scream stuff, and told him we were looking for piano in that style, which is a very Stones Exile on Main Street era, the vibe that we were going for. And Rick just nailed it. Yeah.
I mean, listening to you talk, this is something I think we've always known about Poi Dog Pondering. Poi Dog is uncategorizable, and I think that's just because you're students of music. you've ingested everything, and you kind of synthesize the best of what you've enjoyed and processed through the years.
Yeah, and we've also given ourselves the ability to not be held down by a definition of sound. Like I would say, I love the Ramones, but the Ramones were held down by a definition of sound, or AC/DC. They are held down. Like they can't go make a yacht rock record. I can.
Damn right.
We sort of open up this elbow room, going like, no, we're going to follow all of our influences, and we're not going to be defined by a sound. It's going to be whatever we're feeling in the moment, and it gives us that freedom to do that.
Licked All the Sugar on the new album, Keep on Loving Each Other. This is a fantastic example of where the lyrics and the music are so perfectly matched, because the music creates that vibe of waking up after a long night, and just everything kind of clicks on that one.
Yeah, no, it's a really nice. I had the song "Licked All the Sugar" in my fingertips on the guitar. Could play it, and then felt like it should be a transitional point in the record, and then but we didn't quite know what to do with it. And then Ted wrote that opening chord structure for that whole thing, and then we gave it to Susan and Max and Paul, and then they orchestrated it, and it just worked out wonderfully.
You just said something talking about a transitional point in the record. I was going to mention Keep on Loving Each Other is the perfect way to close the album, but based on what you just said, or in addition to what you just said, album sequencing matters.
Yes.
And I think it's kind of a lost art form as we're living in this very a la carte music world.
100%. Yeah.
So is that a painstaking thing, or do you kind of know as you're writing these songs, oh, that's one of the ones we're going to put on top? We're going to put Sweet Taste in My Mouth early, or...
No, I mean, I think this record, I didn't know at all what order the songs were. I didn't know what the first track was going to be. I had a really strong feeling that Keep on Loving Each Other was going to be the last track. It feels like a coda,
Yeah.
And so that one was pretty obvious to me. Actually, we wrote that transition point for the beginning of Licked All the Sugar for Do It Your Own Way. We sort of thought, because I was writing a lot of songs in this sort of cluster of chords, and we thought we were going to link them all together, kind of like the Beatles' Abbey Road, the way that all the songs, it's almost like a third of a song goes into a third of a song, goes into a third of a song, came in through the bathroom, they obviously stitched that thing together, and so we thought we were going to do that, and it wasn't, they didn't go together in the right way, so we ended up burying it later in the record, but then it landed at a really sweet spot where it was able to do that transitional thing.
Let's talk about sex, Frank
Yeah.
Orrall.
Talk about sex, baby.
When I think about some of your sexier songs, Diamonds and Buttermilk is one that comes to mind.
Yep.
That was fairly racy, one might say. In the modern day, Meet Me in the Forest is perhaps a bit more reserved. But what's interesting, and it occurred to me as I was listening to this, both situations in those two songs are thunderous. That is a...
I Seek the Thunder of You, right. Yeah.
It's a recurring metaphor.
Yeah. Not intentionally, and but maybe because, and I never stopped to think about it, but maybe because they're both natural phenomena.
Just to take a step back, since I mentioned Diamonds and Buttermilk, we're approaching, it's distant, but it's not. We're approaching the 30-year anniversary of Pomegranate.
Yep.
Is that something you're thinking about?
Yeah, we did a 20-year or 25-year at the Vic Theater, where we brought out the original Hawaii Street Band, flew them out, and they played earlier, and then people from the Austin era as well as Chicago era. But then, did that. We played the record whole all the way through. So I don't know that we'll do it on the 30th, because we did it on 25.
But maybe a commemorative release, or is that...
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? Yeah, possibly.
Stickers, a T-shirt?
Something. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it yet, but you're right. Here we are, 2003. That's 2 years away. Yeah, maybe.
The vibiest song, in my opinion, on the album is Wake It Now.
Ah, nice.
That's one of those close your eyes and kind of let the music take you on that journey sort of song.
Yeah, so, that one, I without intending to, but I noticed all of a sudden I was writing these very 80s infused songs. they're not like throwbacks, but they're, I came up playing in, lots. I came up in the 80s, so first started writing and playing, but I never worked that side of myself there. And then, but this one just came out that way. But so even the vocals are very dramatic. I mean, you realize, 80s were very dramatic. Everybody's very self-aware and going through it, and so that song just kind of came out very fast. But there again, it's almost that return to that thing of like, gonna have to wake it now. You got, it's there again. It's like following your heart thing is sort of there. Like your heart fell asleep. You're gonna have to wake it now. So kind of thing like that.
What were you like in the 80s, since you brought it up?
In the 80s, I was 20 in 1980. I started playing drums in bands in Hawaii, like punk new wave bands there. And I was just playing drums 3 to 5 nights a week, like, in all these bands. And I was a mod. A decided mod. I had a scooter. I loved the mod lifestyle.
Just to bring it back to Paul Weller and the style.
Yeah. I'm a big Paul Weller fan. That's why you're absolutely on point when you notice that in that song, for sure. Yeah, and he's a huge influence on me. I just love the way he's, from the jam to the style council to his own things. He's doing it. And then I surfed. I was a surfer too, and still do, but during that period. And then probably when I was about 24, 25, is when I started to write my first songs, and then I got completely into songwriting. Little 4-track. I made them the alias Poi Dog Pondering at that point, and I started making records out of my bedroom on 4 and 8-track and selling them on consignment in stores. But that's when the bit really went in the mouth, and I became a songwriter and a musician for life. Like I knew this is what I'm doing. Before that, I was cutting class and surfing.
Which I think that's what you do there. I can't imagine living a life any other way down there. I was just thinking of you in the 80s, made me think instantly of, what was I doing in the 80s? I was listening to New Order. Hey, Poi Dog Pondering recorded like one of my favorite covers of all time of Love Vigilantes.
I love New Order. I just think their melody stuff is unbelievable. All the intertwining stuff with the low-end guitars. Max and I both bond on our love for New Order's melodies. They're just, they're just great, undeniable,
So you've been in this industry, you've been in the musical orbit for so long. Is it easier or harder now to be an independent musician than when you were selling music on consignment in the 80s versus present day? Has it come full circle?
It's come full circle completely. We're making records out of our bedroom now and selling them on consignment. No, not really. We're selling them. It feels very much like I went through the whole thing. I went through making records at home on a 4-track, selling them on consignment, making the covers, selling them on consignment, playing on the street, doing that. And then it got signed to an indie label, got signed to a major label, started our own record company. And, now it's kind of feels like almost like the same thing. We're literally making records out of our bedrooms again. You can't sell enough records to warrant going into a studio to pay for a studio. Right. So you make it at home. But the gear's gotten so good that, ever since Pomegranate, we rented out an old disused basketball gym in Cabrini Green and tracked the record there, and then every record we've sort of made in a makeshift space, and now we're all like, Ted's got a lofted apartment, but he can set up a drum kit there and guitar amp, so we can do that there. I've got a place, Susan's got a place, so we can all go to each other's places and track, and the gear's so good that it sounds great, and so we're back making it, and we're I did the artwork, went down, my landlord is a beautiful designer, a graphic designer, Sheila Sachs. She does stuff for Pravda Records.
Oh, she's world class,
and a reader and things like that. And so we went down there and had coffee one day and just knocked out the artwork for the record, just talking story and just made it. I've been collecting imagery and had the idea, how I wanted the stuff, but then we literally could just make it that fast. So it feels like handmade again.
Yeah.
Maybe when I was working on Columbia, when I was signed at Columbia, was the roughest time for me because decision by committee all the time. There's the A&R person in the room. There's the vice president, the person from the art department, for graphic design department for the art, everybody's, we're on site shooting a video, and the A&R guys there is telling the director that he wants a wide shot. I was like, we had the cameraman from Slacker, Lee Daniels, directing our first video, and some Yahoo, from 30 Rock was like there telling him he wants more wide shots. So I was like, back up, give him some space, let this guy do what he does. I don't have to deal with that now. It's great.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Hey, are videos something that still interests you? Like, is that something you'd want to dig further into?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to. It's I really feel like I should be actively making videos for this record, and I just haven't got there yet. But I have the tools. I mean, I could shoot it on an iPhone. I have. I can edit it. It's there. It's just changing my mindset after coming out of recording, and then. But my intention is to make a lot of videos for this record.
I mentioned from the beginning of this, the musicianship in Poi Dog, always world class. I mean, you've got the best people in this band. As you're piecing albums together, specifically this new one, you and Ted kind of hammered everything out, but as you're getting the various parts from people, like as you're getting Susan's violin, like as they're coming over, what do you think? What's it like to have those initial visions fleshed out by these players in particular?
No, it's incredible. And, we sort of make decisions about the songs, like we feel like it should happen this way, and then we talk to people and they bring in everybody has their expertise that they do. And then, so sometimes I'm there in the studio, sometimes I stay out and let them just run their thing, Ted on this record was he recorded most everything other than stuff that I recorded at home. But so oftentimes I would just let Ted be alone with whoever was tracking, and then for me to go sit back and listen to it comes out speakers, like it's a beautiful surprise, And the thing is that the band's been a band for so long that Max can write something at home, Susan can write something, they can show up at the studio, and it dovetails.
It's amazing.
It's like a language that's been developed over 33 years or whatever it's been,
Well, it's funny because I talked to Susan end of last year, and I asked her something similar, just with the amount of people that are in Poi Dog Pondering. Like, I know it's hard for me in my everyday business role to get consensus out of 4 people on a Teams call. Like, for you to kind of work together and have that fluidity with that many people in the band seems, well, I know it's not normal.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we have adopted for a long time is like you never say no to an idea. If somebody's got an idea, like, well, I think we should try this. It's like, all right, let's try it. And then with the idea that the obvious, like in other words, someone might have a number of different ideas on what should happen in either the arrangement or in the solo section or something in a song. And so we never just say, nah, that's a junk idea. It's like, all right, let's track it. Because the right idea will be obvious when it comes back over the speakers, I
love that.
9.5 times out of 10, everyone will go, yeah, that's the one.
It's hard to do an interview in the Chicago area, talk about Poi Dog Pondering, and not talk about the fans. It's the community support that exists for this band is exceptional, and again, not normal. Yeah. Talk about your relationship with Poi Dog Pondering's fans.
Yeah, I mean, it is true. I mean, it's like it's a really beautiful, loyal fan base, and it's always been that way. I mean, there used to be a group called the Poi Pounders. Like they made a group, and they actually made T-shirts, and they would show up and they would be at the shows together, or like, and now there's some social media groups, and I can see them all kind of connecting there, and. When we traveled, we were just down in Austin, and I saw people from Denver, I saw people from New Jersey, I saw people from, from Chicago even. So it's nice that people travel to the shows, and I'm thankful for it.
How do you feel about social media?
It's I'm not sure. I don't really have a hard feeling about it. It's like one of these things where it just becomes course de rigueur. It's like So I don't. I use it kind of like a megaphone. Mm-hmm. I just like we have a show coming up. I don't really interact too much on it. Not because just because it gets hard. Like you either have to be really active, or else not active. Because if you're just sort of active every once in a while, then people are like, people get touchy about how much you're active.
Right.
So I just go like, no, I'm just gonna it's we don't have many ways left now to get the word out. Like there's few things. I'm thankful that you're doing this. It's like there's far and few between. You get people like where you get a chance to like make something, and a lot of times it feels like a forest tree just falling in the forest. And so we're thankful whenever there's ability to put the word out, and then social media is like, even though it feels like you're talking to the world, but you're really just talking to a cul-de-sac, but at least you're talking to a cul-de-sac.
An interested cul-de-sac. But you just touched on something. We're in this interesting time where music is available everywhere. Every song ever recorded can be found. But I think an issue or a problem for music fans, you're going to, more rye, yeah, absolutely. I think a problem for music fans is lack of knowing where to find the curators. I think back in the day, like when Volo Volo came out, like there was a process for people to discover that music, whether it was through CMJ or traditional radio or whatever. These days, I think it's harder for people to find stuff they like because the curators are less clearly identified because there's so many of them.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I love curation. I love when somebody's like pulling it together and you get to know their personality and I love it when things are actively selected. In some ways, you're right. There's so many of them now, but there's a lot of curation going on. People making playlists and things like that. And I am actually getting turned on to a whole lot of new music now through some of these things that I might not have been if it was just traditional radio. Because traditional radio had so many strict things about what their ability to, what their spectrum of things they played. So. Feel like now you can listen to these playlists and listen to a wide variety of things.
Although to be fair, I guess the best method is the same as it's always been: word of mouth.
Yeah, no, I mean, if a friend hands me a record and just says you got to listen to this, like Ted handed me the Primal Scream like Memphis tapes, he's like, you got to listen to this, and I was get home and I was like, wow. Friend handed me Destroyer, and he was like, you have to listen to this record, and I took it home. And wow.
Yeah, I would trust anything Doug Julin put in front of me.
Yeah.
All right, so again, the new Poi Dog album, Keep On Loving Each Other. It's available now in compact disc form. You can also stream it, like the modern kids do.
It's out on it's a Bandcamp and for download, and then it's out on Spotify and Amazon, all that stuff.
All the usual places. Album number 10, 10th full-length album from Poi Dog Pondering. I love it. Like I said, the messages are great. The musicianship and songwriting is fantastic. I keep on loving you.
Thank you, brother. It's very kind of you to have me back. I appreciate it. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too, Frank. And thank you again to Few Spirits for having us. Thanks to Paul Hletko for the hospitality and for the rye, which Frank is a fan of. So. Cheers. Thanks, Frank.
Thank you, brother.